course, it's a very huge question, but I mean, pantomime I discovered when I was very young, and it was for me something really special, because you really find the essence of the theater. You have really only your body on stage, and the possibility to express everything in mime. So mime is a very precious and very special art form. I really would like not to compare with any other art forms. Of course, there is the musicality, there is the way to act. So it's really the silent actor. Everybody has, in a way, some mime skills in his life. So what is beautiful is that pantomime is something coming from the child. When you see a child looking or playing, so there is first, in a really small child, a baby, there is this kind of expression and this breathing, and you can see in the face of a child who can speak, you can see how it feels. So so this is for me a very special art form, and I developed all over the years, and I really are happy that more and more people are starting to appreciate this art form.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course, I developed our art form together with Wolfram, my partner, over 25 years now, and I really see that our style is quite special. I mean, we are very influenced by our master Marcel Marceau, where we had the chance to study with, and also to work with him in his company during several years. And we try to keep the classical way, of course, the depths of Marcel Marceau's style, but of course now the time goes on, and also we become older, and we try to put, of course, elements inside that are probably closer to the opera, or to the music, and to the different art forms. So we try to find a style which is interesting for the public. I think this is also very important, that we do performance not for us to be happy for ourselves, but to make shows and performances for the audience, and they have to feel well inside, they have to understand, they have to be touched by our art form. And I think we found together with our director Lionel Ménard really a way that everybody can identify with it. Sometimes the audience is challenged, or how do you say, is in a kind of they feel it's like a little bit old style, but sometimes then we bring something very modern inside, and so this is really a mixture between all the different ages and styles, and bring a lot of rhythm, and of course a big work also together with the music, which has also a big part in our work, that we really find a way to use music as like an ambience, or music really to find something very synchrone with the music, and also to work with a lot of sound effects which helps the audience to really to enter in our world, and to be really like, if you want, in a movie you are really catched inside, because the sound is really perfect and really strong, and we try to make this to bring this sensibility of music and sound inside of our show.
Mm-hmm.
I think for the audience has so many things to see. I mean, you have opera, you have classical spoken theater, drama theater, and contemporary dance. So there is a lot of offer in the world of theater. I think the audience from now, they discover the art of mime, because it's not so well known as the other art forms, and this is, I think, the beauty of mime, that the audience suddenly say, "Oh, wow, this is I didn't expect this at all," and they are brought into stories that normally you need words to explain, and to take that they are taken by the story, but you have no words, and suddenly they discover this art form, and they say, wow, there is even more depth in the art of mime than in other art forms. Yeah, the most interesting in the art of mime, I think the most interesting is actually the variation. I mean, Wolfram and me, we work as a duo, and of course the classical pantomime was known through soloists like Marcel Marceau or Jean-Louis Barrault from the old times, and of course De Croo did also some solo skills, and then of course now we are a duo, and we have much more possibilities in telling stories, and also we are in a kind of limited because we are two, but now we have also groups. They are 3, 4, 5, 8 people, and I think this is the treasure of the art of mime. I compared in this way, I would say, okay, it's like music. I mean, music, you can play violin by yourself, or you are a duo, or a quartet, or a little chamber orchestra, or a symphony orchestra. So there are big possibilities in, and I think the big treasure of mime is that all different groups I know since the years are working so differently, and that makes the art of mime like a diamond with so many facets and so many lights coming out. The biggest problem I see in mime, that but this is also in all other art forms, that you don't have to see the technical side of mime. So very often you can see pantomime where it's form of demonstration of technical skills, and you look at it. Probably for mimes it is interesting, but the audience doesn't want to see that. They want to be touched by the story, by the soul of and the inside of the actor, and be marveled and be scared, and they want to laugh, they want to enter in a story. And so I think this is the biggest problem I see, that the technique is very important. You have to learn it, but then you have to reject it and go into the dreams. Mm-hmm. I think what is very very nice, and I really appreciate in while we perform, Wolfram and me, we perform around 100 times a year, and since 5-6 years it's about this amount of performances, and now we are nearly working 25 years, and I see that we of course perform numbers or performances which we create so long time ago, and it's always developing. It's always sometimes we don't perform 1 month, for example, in the summertime, and then we come together, and without rehearsal we go on stage somewhere in front of a big audience, and we play again one number which we really know by heart. I mean, we don't have to think about what's coming, and then there is this feeling of come on, let's try a little bit, extend this, and let's give a reaction which is different than I did before. So it's always, even if there are 20 people in the house or 500, I mean, it's always something. You want to find something new and to elements, but in of course not to shock your partner and to bring him in a bad situation. To be mime. Yeah, probably because I was when I was young, I was thinking studying music. I was playing double bass, and my father was a musician and playing in a chamber orchestra, and I was like this to study music with the double bass. But during this time, when I was 16, 17, I was already starting doing mime, and I had this kind of facility, and it was so easy for me to be in front of an audience and to tell stories, and this was my life actually. And when I was on stage, I was like afraid, as I am even now. When I go on stage, then I feel uncomfortable, but then I see how it works, and the audience is reacting, so I feel really, really, really nice. And when I saw Marcel Marceau when I was 9 years old, when I saw his show, I have still the image of this first performance of Marcel Marceau. He was so small. I was in the second balcony, and I saw Marcel Marceau acting on an empty stage, and I was catched by the story, and I was understanding everything, and I said, oh, I want to be that. I want to do the same. I want to do something what very few people do in the world, and mime obviously is one of these art forms which is so special, and not to be actors. There are so many actors, speaking actors, and I would be one of 1,000, and now I'm one of few.